Can you explain the differences between arrow functions and regular functions in JavaScript?
Absolutely. Let's break it down. First, let's look at the syntax. Arrow functions have a more concise syntax. With arrow functions, if you have a single expression, you can skip the curly braces and the return keyword. This is known as implicit return. Have a look at the code. There are various scenarios while defining parameters of an arrow function. Let us go over those scenarios. We can observe that parenthesis is needed for the arrow function even when there are no parameters. We can skip the parenthesis altogether when there is just one parameter as given in the code example. We may choose to retain the parenthesis though. When there are more than one parameter, parenthesis is mandatory. This is the add program that we saw earlier. Observe how the arrow function is defined with two parameters. To summarize, next, let's talk about hoisting. Regular functions are hoisted, meaning you can use them before they are declared in your code. See the code given. Here the function fnormal will be called and executed without any error. Arrow functions are also hoisted in the same way as the variables var, const, and let. This is because they are assigned to variables before calling them. So we need to declare them before accessing them. In this example, since Pharaoh is a variable of var type, it also gets hoisted like any other var type variable. But since var type variables are hoisted and initialized to undefined, the value of Pharaoh is undefined and the first line of the code will print undefined. The call to Pharaoh function in the second line will lead to an error.
But what if Pharaoh is of type let or const?
In that case, we get reference error saying cannot access Pharaoh before initialization. This is because in the case of let and const variables, though they are hoisted, they cannot be accessed before initialization. Now, one of the key differences is how this context is handled. In this code example, the first console.log statement will print foo because this keyword refers to the object obj that called the fnormal function. Then we pass an anonymous function to the setTimeout function. Since the callback function here is a regular function, as we have seen before, this keyword will refer to the object that calls the function. In this case, the object that called the setTimeout function is the global object. Hence, the value of myvar when accessed within the callback function is undefined and the second console.log statement prints undefined. Let us take the same code example, but this time instead of a regular function, we pass an arrow function as a callback function to the setTimeout method. We have to keep in mind that arrow functions do not have their own this. They inherit this from its enclosing lexical scope. The lexical scope of the arrow function means where the function is defined rather than from where the function is called. Here we see that the function fnormal is enclosing the arrow function. The value of this context in fnormal is the object obj, because fnormal was called using obj. This is what is inherited by the arrow function. So instead of printing undefined, the second console.log statement prints foo. This makes arrow functions great for use cases like callback functions and event handlers. In these cases, one would like to retain the value of this object. Though control is transferred either to web APIs in the case of methods like setTimeout or event handlers in the case of web components, it is useful to have the prior this value. Another difference is with regard to constructors. Regular functions can be used as constructors and called with the new keyword to create new objects. Arrow functions cannot be used as constructors and will throw an error if you try to use them with new keyword.
Great. Can you tell me when arrow functions should not be used?
Sure, it is better we do not use arrow functions as object methods as they do not bind this context. Due to this limitation, accessing the object properties using this keyword from within an arrow function will fetch wrong values. Lastly, arrow functions are particularly useful in array methods like map, filter, and reduce because of their concise syntax and the way they handle this context.
It was a pleasure talking to you. We shall get back to you. Thank you.
Same here. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Please subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest videos. Join us on this journey to mastering JavaScript and becoming a sought-after developer in the tech industry.